Hi there, I'm Laura, a master's student at the Faculty of Industrial Design at the Eindhoven University of Technology. I'm currently graduating, and one of my graduation deliverables is a reflection of my development within the competency framework of our faculty. So, this competency framework consists of different elements like professional skills to design research processes, teamwork, and communication, and the different expertise areas that we can develop in within design as it is defined within our faculty. So, throughout my final master project, I have been making a podcast in order to engage in the perspective of others. So, I thought that it would be really nice to create a podcast about my development in order to engage you in my perspective. So, before I start sharing my developmental story according to the different elements of our competence framework, it's important for you to know that I'm graduating within the constructive design research track. This means that the design work that I do is aimed at generating knowledge, and I do this through design by introducing designed interventions into the context I'm designing for, or introducing experiential prototypes to my users. I'm specializing within the fields of user and society and business and entrepreneurship. I started my master with the statement that I wanted to become the designer that bridges the gap between academics and business through design. So, in this podcast, I will explain what I learned and the activities that I did in order to become the designer that is able to fulfill this role within society. Throughout the podcast, I will make references to projects that I did. And if you want to read more about what these projects entail, you can find a description of all of them on my portfolio, which is www.laurapeters.com. So without further ado, let's get into my first competence area. I developed the expertise area of math, data, and computing mostly during the Beautiful Data course I followed at Industrial Design. Being responsible for creating the prototype of the burglar information tool, I developed an understanding of the basics of structuring code and integrating data into processing. I was able to create a prototype of the data visualization that clearly illustrated how the tool would function. Data is an important part of academic research, and through the activities I conducted in my master, I discovered that my strength is in gathering qualitative data. During my research semester, I was able to gather lots of data from both the management and employees of GGZE, but I had difficulty with structuring this data in a way that I could actually use it to inform the creation of a design. In my final master project, I improved on this by, next to gathering lots of qualitative data, also gathering quantitative data. Analyzing the quantitative data in Excel allowed me to spot interesting trends, which I could then describe and enrich with the qualitative data. Moving on to technology and realization. During my master, I followed several courses at the Department of Industrial Engineering and Innovation Sciences. During one of the design projects that I conducted there, I was responsible for developing the user interface of a tool for ASML employees. I have implemented technology in the context of education while working on the professional identity and vision development course at Industrial Design, and by creating how to demo the podcast during my final master project. With Studio Connecting Cultures, we got to realize our first product, which were the mini toolkits that were gifted to visitors of the Culture Cult Expo at Design Hotel Artemis. I worked on two smart mobility projects, one at Industrial Design and one at Innovation Sciences. And within these projects, I familiarized myself with working on or with non-existent or non-realizable technologies, at least for us at that point. I discovered that a strong focus on use case scenarios helped to discover new opportunities for the implementation of these technologies. I learned that I'm aware of technological possibilities and developments, but that I'm very critical towards whether a certain technology is appropriate for the audience or context I'm designing for. I am able to create technological prototypes, and I'm able to realize non-tech products. Due to the context of my design work, which is mostly change processes, I have found that low-tech solutions are usually most appropriate. As the content of my designs is usually very new or disruptive to the users, a format that is familiar to them makes this content more approachable. During my master, I really discovered how I function as a designer within the realm of creativity and aesthetics. I find creativity in information. I use lots of different sources of information and I use either certain information formats or academic concepts as starting point for my design projects. For example, the summer before my final master project, I started listening to podcasts and I used a podcast as research tool during my final master project. The iterations within these projects are then informed by the input that I gather from users. I like to challenge others to be creative and change their perspective in order to reflect on themselves or their environment. And then, as designer, I provide them with the tools to guide them in this process. This can be seen in the work that we do with Studio Connecting Cultures, in the project that I did for GGZE, where I facilitated brainstorm sessions and conducted interviews using the co-constructing stories method. But my favorite example is that at the end of each podcast recording, I asked the staff members how they would present one of their personal projects at the demo day, which really caught them off guard and delivered some really good content for the podcast. Aesthetics can be found in my careful approach to the design process. I like to establish a brand identity at the start of each project that I use in the creation of all designed materials. This combined with continuous documentation of my process makes it easy to create a good-looking end result that is easily recognized. This approach is clearly visible throughout my final master project and also in the videos that accompany this podcast. In order to support and stimulate my creative process, I bought an iPad Pro, and this quickly became my creative hub and main tool for designing. It allows me to easily combine content from all the different programs that I use to gather and document information like Mendeley, Pocket, Google Keep, Instagram, Pinterest, Acast, YouTube, you name it. I believe that the modularity of the tool will keep stimulating me to explore and develop myself creatively. Let's move on to the area of business and entrepreneurship. During the projects that I conducted at Innovation Sciences, I discovered the value and potential of combining design and management. As designer, I am able to add value to organization-oriented projects by bringing in the perspective of the user. Over the past 1.5 years, Studio Connecting Cultures has provided me with a place to experiment with entrepreneurship and the hands-on development of business models. Giving our workshop in different contexts, varying from educational to international, and developing our toolkit into both an exposition item and a travel edition, helped us to define our stronger market position and strategically frame our value proposition to keep on attracting new clients. Throughout my master, I've made a point of staying connected to the industry by working as a teaching assistant in the Professional Identity and Vision Development course, doing an internship at GGZE, joining the Creative Change Ambassadors, and being a coach at the Embrace Tech minor at Fontis. I struggled a lot with planning and finding a balance between working and studying, but having the opportunity to experiment with that which I learned during my study in practice helped me build confidence to operate from my personal expertise in a professional context. In order to provide myself with a continuous stimulus to have an entrepreneurial mindset, I founded my own company. It proved to be a great tool for guiding decision-making in the design process during my final master project, because it kept me focused on how I could add most value. I am not yet the confident entrepreneur that I want to become, but I have developed into a design leader that is able to attach people to innovative projects, and I can create marketable visions that the users or communities that I target can be inspired by and make their own. To round off the areas of expertise, let's finish with user in society. During my master, I have traveled to Berlin, Barcelona, Marrakesh, Hong Kong, Japan, and I went on my very first business trip to Scotland. I love to always visit the Science and Design Museum wherever I am, and whenever possible, the local design faculty in order to see what is happening within the field of design across the world. By diving into the topic of communicating about culture with Studio Connecting Cultures, I became aware of my own cultural biases. I had more than I expected, and this experience has triggered me to work on having a more open and accepting mindset. Following a course on organizational change inspired me to focus my design work on the inclusion of stakeholders in change processes. This can be seen in the mapping of the mental modes of employees, middle, and top management I made during my research semester and throughout my final master project, where all my designed interventions were created with stakeholder involvement in mind. In the course I followed on the ethics of human enhancement, I was confronted with the impact technology can have on society and the responsibility that I, as designer, carry when introducing a technology into society. As a result of this course, I became much more engaged in the world. Listening to podcasts allows me to engage easily in perspectives different from my own, and reading both classic literature and science fiction novels is helping me to develop a good understanding of both societal and technological developments. During my final master project, I put effort in establishing a team around me with diverse perspectives on design. And I reached out to experts to provide me with inspiration for designing rather than letting everything come from me. Recording how to demo the podcast, I discovered that there is always logic or a common ground to be found in complex social situations. It is up to me as designer to surface this logic and use it to inform my design decisions. Okay, so that's it for the expertise areas. Let's talk a bit about professional skills. Throughout my master, I've been forcing myself into high pressure situations. I've developed my planning and organizing skills learning the hard way. During my research semester, I took on way too many responsibilities, which had repercussions for my mental health. This was a horrible experience and made it so that I set out to prioritize my health above all else during my graduation year. Bullet journaling has been and still is an important tool for me in achieving this. It allows me to break down my planning into smaller pieces, making my goals and progress visible, which helps me in reflecting on it. When I find a way to improve, I get very excited and I want to implement it immediately, but having a dedicated planning space allows me to temper myself a bit in this enthusiasm of improvement. During the design courses I followed at Innovation Sciences, I had to write weekly reflections on the theory that we received and how I integrated it into the project that I was working on. Having this structural moment of reflection helped me to pause, assess my progress, and whether this still aligned with my learning or project objectives. I also integrated this structural reflection moment in my final master project and wrote bi-weekly reflections on my personal blog about the progress of my project. This proved to remain a big support throughout my project. Throughout my master, I have established several channels where I can reflect, track my process, and gather inspiration on how to improve myself. Especially in relation to goal setting, I have a lot to learn. I am quite ambitious, but I need to give myself enough time to create high quality end deliverables. But I might need to lower my standards a bit in order to achieve that. Let's move on to teamwork and communication. In the work that I did for the Professional Identity and Vision Development course, I discovered that I am very well able to work with bigger teams if I am in a coaching role. This showed very well when I was able to instruct the tutors for industrial design's first year students, but had some difficulty with consistently communicating my activities to the course team itself. Working in a team of two, like with my fellow teaching assistant during the Professional Identity and Vision course, or with Eva for Studio Connecting Cultures, is something that I enjoy very much and feel that I'm also quite good at. In official documentation or presentations, my communication style is simple and straightforward, both in content and aesthetics. I like to make the facts that people can actually use easily accessible and create room for dreaming and exploration in the face-to-face contact that I have with people. I believe that this combination of facts and feelings allows me to easily navigate through organizations and gain momentum for my projects. The facts establish a common ground, and attention to the feelings is what gets people involved in my projects. During my final master project, I explored new communication formats like blogging, podcasting, and using social media to promote my project. I especially like the podcast format since it allowed me to combine the facts and feelings. I gathered data on the development and potential of the demo day at Industrial Design, while also gaining insight in the various personal experiences the people I interviewed had. I discovered that as designer, I facilitate interaction or communication between stakeholders, using design tools to stimulate a conversation. By experimenting with various methods, I have developed expertise in interviewing one on one, but also in facilitating group sessions. Let's relate all of the things that I've just told you to design research processes. In my master, I wanted to establish a good understanding of what a design research process entails and how I, as designer, function within it. Following courses related to design from a management perspective allowed me to start identifying the strength of industrial design. The podcast episode I recorded with Saskia Bakker gave me the opportunity to ask all questions I had left and complete this picture. We use design as a tool to generate knowledge about the different ways that technology can be used or implemented in society. This knowledge can function as input for follow-up design projects or inform the creation of actual products, services, and systems, in my perspective at least. I understand the importance of academic documentation within our faculty, but I discovered that I don't resonate with the academic format in relation to design projects. Most of my design decisions are informed by qualitative data, and during my master, I have not discovered an academic format of documenting the subtleties within this data that are usually the most important informers. I am greatly inspired by academic writing, especially literature from other fields. In my final master project, I thoroughly enjoyed using a philosophical concept of perception to inform my final redesign of the demo day. Also, the mindset of constantly evaluating your assumptions is something that I really enjoy. Cultivating this mindset throughout my future career will allow me to responsibly carry out my role as designer of technology. In both my work and projects, I have demonstrated that I am able to manage and lead design processes. By gathering different perspectives and using them to create understandable and relatable visions, I am able to attach people to my projects and inspire them to contribute to these projects. Throughout my master, I've been setting a high standard for myself. Even in my final master project, I was not realistic in the results that I wanted to deliver within the time available. Spreading my time across activities, I've become skilled in planning my time and considering the minimum viable product needed to achieve my goals. This approach has made me most comfortable working on projects individually, taking on the role of coach or expert. However, I enjoy working most when I'm working together with others. This is why I emphasize stakeholder involvement during my final master project. In order to sustain my development, I will keep blogging, reading, and gathering inspiration as I do. To keep developing myself, I will take on the challenge to keep working on the development of Studio Connecting Cultures, explore how to connect people on an international level with the creative change ambassadors, and challenge myself to develop my ability to operate in and contribute to a team by joining the Pulse team as expert on design-based working. In order to round off this reflective podcast, I would like to share with you my mission, professional identity, and vision that I have developed throughout my master, and that will continue to inform the way that I contribute to society and will keep on developing myself as a designer in the future. So, there we go. As designer, I create space. Space that allows the innovators of today to explore and create the future. This can be your modern-day Fellowship of the Ring, your current interpretation of the Millennium Falcon, or a Mr. Data that can support you wherever needed. My aim is to create, sustain, and develop innovative communities and create atmospheres of opportunity that allow individuals to reflect on the past and dream about the future. In my design work, people are my main source of data and inspiration. Being present and integrated into the context I'm designing for is essential. By keeping my eyes, mind, and schedule open, I can quickly establish connections with key players in the game. My interests are in ethics in relation to technological and societal development, personal development processes, and the functioning of organizations and systems. I'm process-oriented, highly value reflection, and enjoy gathering loads of information to fuel my creativity. Combining my natural analytic capabilities, sensitivity to the context, and understanding of trends, I am able to translate complexity into approachable and marketable future visions. I approach projects in a structured way, carefully planning and documenting the process. I am challenge-driven, committed, and strive to always provide a live example of how I think it should be done. This is why I want to become an expert on all things related to my interests and approach to designing, so that I can fulfill a consulting or coaching role in relation to these topics. Diving into any kind of literature, from factual to fictive, from philosophical to scientific, it seems to me that wanting to progress and stimulate development are qualities inherent to the human race. Sagas like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Star Trek have been an integral part of my upbringing and inspire me greatly in the sense that, in order to push boundaries, explore the unknown, and save the world from evil, we need a strong, fearless, and dedicated team, a safe place to return to in hard times, and a bit of magic. Being born, raised, and educated in Eindhoven, innovation and technology as drivers for societal change are in my blood. When designed carefully and integrated properly, technology can be an amazing and supportive rather than directive tool for stimulating our development. Clear visions for the future and great sensitivity to current social structures are necessary to achieve this. Creating strong and proactive networks around innovation in which each individual can express their personal expertise will be able to facilitate such a design approach. As innovation is inherent to the discipline of design, I see an opportunity for today's designers to take on a leading role in establishing and supporting these networks for creating the future. And that's it, people. That's all I've got. It took 2.5 years, and this is what I've got for you. Thank you so much for listening, and this is me signing off and taking some well-deserved sleep. This podcast was a Studio Het is Ik production made possible by myself and my learning process. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will hopefully talk to you in a future podcast project. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you then. Bye.